Welcome in to the latest episode of Betting the Pitch, the European Soccer Edition. I'm your host, Real_G Warner. We are 30 and 10, 75% on our best bets this season. Got to make sure I tweet this out so people know we're live. We're going to go through on this episode, once I hit the tweet button, we're going to go through the Europa League, which for some reason gets a lot of hits. I can't really explain it because a lot of the smaller clubs are playing, but maybe it's after a decent Champions League midweek. We got a big Thursday of matches to get you set up for the weekend. So on this episode, like I do on all of them, you can find all episodes on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify under Betting the Pitch. But I go through each of the games on the cards. Going to go through the knockout round. This is a round of 24, trying to reduce to 16. 8 teams got buys in the Europa League, just like the Champions League. And I will be going through each of the matches, also the two advanced numbers that are available at BetOnline. And we will go through all of them. For those live viewers, feel free to throw a comment here and I will read it if I see it. Other than that, let's get into it, and we'll start in the early window, starting 11:45. So I'll do an ultimate best bet from the early window, one selection and one from the late. I'll push them all together for that 1 minute video on at the Real_G Warner on YouTube and on Instagram. But I'll pick one from the early, one from the late, and then I'll give some drama, I guess, at the end, on which I will pick to put that 30 and 10 record on the line. So we'll start with Ferencvaros. They are from Budapest, Hungary, and they're hosting Victoria Plzeň, a Czechia or Czech Republic side, formerly known. Right now, Ferencvaros a quarter goal favorite at home, which is about what I give for home field advantage or home pitch advantage or whatever abbreviation I should use. Total's 2.25 here, juice very heavily to over, and more juice is currently on Victoria Plzeň at this point. So both these clubs, certainly not giant ones, not one that I cover on the weekly episode that comes out, but in the pitch, the same platform on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, also on YouTube at the Real_G Warner. But they are, I've been following Victoria Plzeň very closely ever since the Conference League last year. They were able to graduate, or whatever you call it, to the Europa League, and they've clearly played well, gotten here, had a big win over Real Sociedad as I wear their shirt, or at least one with their logo on it. And then honestly, have been very impressive. Now, Ferencvaros, to me, they've scored a lot of goals in this competition. I don't necessarily believe that they're a goal scoring club. From whenever I've watched Ferencvaros, they've been very conservative and have played very, very conservatively. Deep sitting, probably in the first leg of a knockout tie where they need to get a result and need to win. We might see them be a little bit more aggressive, and I think that plays in Victoria Plzeň's hands. Or feet, I guess, more appropriately for the soccer podcast. At this point, I think I'm more interested in the Victoria Plzeň quarter goal underdog, though it's certainly expensive relatively and doesn't give you a ton of room for error. A draw will win you half a bet, a win will win you the full bet, a loss will win you nothing. So it's nice to potentially see Victoria Plzeň go on the road, get a draw, because I think that's what they're aiming for, is try to make it so they can win and advance at home. But we'll see what happens. I expect Ferencvaros to play pretty conservatively. I think under 2.25 is also worth a look. And you could potentially play both and potentially split if Victoria Plzeň does the scoring and Ferencvaros do not. Though you do certainly leave yourself open to a Ferencvaros win, lopsided one that really would damage the tie for Victoria Plzeň on the other side, but also would kill your under potentially. But I think that's a less likely scenario. I think Victoria Plzeň, even down a goal, doesn't feel like they need to push out and be that aggressive. And I think that's what these knockout rounds are all about. So lean to under 2.25. Also lean to Victoria Plzeň getting that quarter of a goal in that first matchup. And so now I'll move to the two advanced numbers. So Ferencvaros currently plus 120 to advance, a lot because they do have a home first leg and will be playing away for the second. Victoria Plzeň coming back minus 150, so 150 will win you 100. 100 on Ferencvaros will win you 120. That seems aligned to me. I think Victoria Plzeň is a better club. Certainly will be tough in their first round matchup away from home, but ultimately that's the side I want to be on. So I'll put Victoria Plzeň quarter goal underdog and the under 2.25 on my list. And really, I'm only looking for plus money underdogs to advance. So probably not much for me to do in that to advance number. Move next to Michelin hosting Real Sociedad as I wear their logo from my first actually European match way back when in San Sebastian. Awesome match that ended 1-0 with a goal in stoppage time. Little did I know that it'd be I would be pulling my hair out over Sabit goals forever. And I think I did have Mallorca, a 1 goal underdog in that matchup. So I ended up sitting through and dealing with a bunch of Real Sociedad people speaking Basque that I don't speak. And unfortunately had to walk out with my tail between my legs with a nice little push at the end that looked like an almost guaranteed winner. But Michelin, a half a goal underdog. They're from the Denmark Superliga or whatever it's called. Half a goal underdog on Michelin at home with all the juice. Totals 2.25, juice more to the over. Real Sociedad, I mean, certainly should be a big favorite to advance number. I probably should give that now. Currently, Michelin 330. So $100 wins you $330. So they're a pretty big underdog. Not given a ton of chance, giving about like maybe quarter chance to get through. Real Sociedad minus 450, so even more expensive. 450 to win 100. It certainly is not where I will be in this matchup. But in this first game and this first tie, I think we see Real Sociedad play pretty conservatively. They are, I think, a little disappointed in their season so far, at least where they stand in La Liga. Got a big win with rotating a significant amount of their club in the weekend or on the weekend against Espanyol, a team fighting relegation. After taking a lead in the first minute, conceded a penalty in the second half, and the literally the commentators were saying this is not what this team should be doing. They should be beating a team that's fighting relegation. And right after that was said, they brought in some substitutes, scored a goal, 1-2-1, killed my under. And unfortunately, that's how things go. But very quiet match, and that's what we've been seeing. And honestly, been backing Real Sociedad unders for what feels like an entire year, and it's been very, very profitable. I don't really see a reason to go away from that. The 2.25 here is not small by any means, especially in Europa League with the Michelin side that were pretty goal heavy in their last matchup that got them into this knockout stage. I think they came back and drew 2-2, I want to say, with a Turkish club from Istanbul. Fenerbahce, maybe, or maybe it was, yeah, I think it was. But at this point, Michelin, I mean, they took the lead in that match. I think it ended up drawing 2-2 late. I don't necessarily believe that they're going to have a lot of opportunity. Real Sociedad are great at possessing the ball, dominating the game, though they don't score a ton of goals with a lot of their possession. It seemed to me that Imanol Aguafil, their manager, had learned from the past and not getting their players too overtired because then they break down and injury crises happen. And then that's really what happened when they were in Champions League and won a group with Inter Milan back when we played with groups. But I think my biggest interest here, I'm interested in the underdog at home a little bit, but I think I'm more interested in under 2.25 in that matchup. Move next to Fenerbahce. Speaking of hosting Anderlecht, so we have an Istanbul Turkish giant and a club from Belgium. Currently, Fenerbahce a 1 goal favorite at home. All the juice on Anderlecht away. Total is 2.75, and it is juiced pretty heavily to over right now. In terms of two advanced numbers, we have Fenerbahce minus 250, so 250 will win 100, and Anderlecht 2-1 underdogs. So every $1 you put will get you two. 100 will win you 200. Big underdog here, Anderlecht, and I gotta say they've scored a lot of goals in kind of worldly goals, not like world class, incredible strikes that I feel like is less likely to occur. But Fenerbahce under I think they're under, yeah, Jose Mourinho. I mean, they, to me, are a defensive club, but they have a lot of offensive players. Some of the biggest names across Europe over the past 5 years that have all gotten aged or haven't really wanted to kind of mess around with where they were. Like I think of Alan Maximin, who was doing so well at Newcastle, and was really all they had when they were struggling at the bottom of the table. Well, I think he took a payday to go play in Istanbul. Anderlecht on the other side, they have some former Premier League players as well in their lineup, and to me, have a lot more young talent. Where Fenerbahce seems to be the older veterans. For that reason, I think I'm more interested in the young squad because I feel like they have no name value compared to all of Fenerbahce's big names, and that is of interest to me. I like the full goal of insurance, so it's very juiced right now, minus 121 at BetOnline. If you don't have an account at BetOnline or Sportsbetting.ag, slide in my DMs at the real underscore G Warner across any social media platform. You find me, and I'll get you a free link to make your first time deposit. Save some money on juice because soccer seems to be the heaviest juice sport that I play. As for the total, I mean, I feel like Anderlecht are due some unders, but I also probably should learn from a lot of overs that they've run into so far this season. So I don't have much of an interest there. I guess if anything, I'd lean under 2.75 and would love to see this hit three because that important push would be really, really nice to have as an extra insurance in my back pocket. I think Fenerbahce, to me, I'm looking to be against them. I just don't know that Anderlecht are strong enough for me to do that. though one goal of insurance or a full insurance goal is enough to level the playing field quite a bit. Move next to Union Saint-Gilloise hosting Ajax of Amsterdam. Union Saint-Gilloise from another Belgian club from Brussels. USG, a quarter goal favorite at home. All the juice on Ajax total is 2.5. Juice more to the under. And then two advanced numbers. We have Union Saint-Gilloise plus 130 to get through Ajax minus 160. Union Saint-Gilloise, they have put some great players in great places. I think a couple in the Bundesliga, Boniface, who just almost went to Saudi Arabia, but has been scoring a ton of goals for Bayer Leverkusen in the German Bundesliga. Also, Mohamed Amoura, who's playing as an incredible striker right now for Wolfsburg as well, despite looking like the smallest guy on the pitch every day. Pace is there for days. The problem is Union Saint-Gilloise don't have a ton of that talent remaining. I mean, they seem like a talent factory, but how many big names can you put at big clubs? And that is kind of where Ajax used to be, selling off all their assets to Manchester United, it seemed, when Eric Ten Hag left, though we saw how great some of those players were in England. Not great was really the answer. But the nice part is going to Belgium. The crowd is small, kind of stadium ground. A friend of mine was actually visiting a sister in Belgium, went to the match. He's like, yeah, I saw Union Saint-Gilloise. I was like, what? They're great. And he's like, yeah, it's just like a neighborhood stadium. So to me, I think that puts Ajax in a pretty good position to not be overwhelmed. The crowd may be on top of you, but I'm not so concerned about that. Ajax, the big name, haven't played like it for many years. It's amazing they're in the Europa League now, considering they were a Champions League finalist not too long ago. But Donny van de Beek has moved on to four clubs since then or whatever. So things have certainly changed. I think the Ajax side is what I'm most interested in because Union Saint-Gilloise generally have a lot of goals. I've tried to play unders with Ajax so far in this competition because I don't really play the Eredivisie. And I got to say, a defensive manager that they brought in from I think Nice in Ligue 1 in France just hasn't really had that great of a defensive effect, which might mean that's an Ajax thing versus a manager thing. So lean to the underdog, big name certainly, and definitely you're not getting them cheap because Ajax are so famous. But I'll put that on my list as a potential for the ultimate best bet coming end of show. I think I went through the two advanced numbers. I believe I did. Ajax minus 160, 160 to win 100. Union Saint-Gilloise 130 to win, or 100 wins 130. Just in case I didn't touch that initially. I think for my best bet, I'm going to go with Real Sociedad. I'm wearing the kit, or at least a logo if I switch my shoulders position a little bit. But Michelin, Real Sociedad under 2.25 goals. I think we see Real Sociedad dominate but struggle to score, especially away from home. I think that makes the most sense. We'll move now to the late window. Eventually, we'll get to an ultimate best bet by pushing something together against that early window best bet. And then we'll record a 1 minute video and you can watch it on YouTube or on Instagram at the real underscore G Warner. We'll start in the late window with PAOK of Thessaloniki in Greece. They're hosting FCSB. I believe Stade Bucuresti or something like that from Bucharest in Romania. Currently, PAOK 3/4 goal favorite. All the juice on FCSB. Totals 2.5. Juice all the way to under. Two advanced numbers. We have PAOK minus 185, so 185 to win 100. FCSB a plus 150 underdog, which is saying something because they get second round at home and they were pretty high up the table, potentially even looking at getting a bye, but ultimately succumbed to Manchester United in a home match the last match day of the Europa League. I like the 3/4 of a goal on FCSB. I haven't been impressed by PAOK so far this season, but I think my biggest interest until you get a full goal of insurance in FCSB, and the juice certainly doesn't look like it's going to head that way. I'll lean to under 2.5 FCSB visiting PAOK. We'll move next to Porto hosting Roma. As you can see, if I move my other shoulder, I do have a scarf for him. I don't have any gear because unfortunately it doesn't really work with my complexion. Not really perfect for me. Anyway, Porto of Portugal. They're pick 'em right now with all the juice to Roma. Totals 2.25, juice all the way to over. This one's been jockeying around between Roma's quarter goal underdog back to pick 'em. I'll be waiting to see if Roma move to an underdog. Roma have not been great. They've struggled, of course, and especially away from home. Porto really, to me, were pretty fortunate to get into the knockouts. I think they were on the outside looking in, heading into the last match day, but got a very fortunate road match, if you call it that, on the road at Maccabi Tel Aviv, which no one's playing in Israel and any European events right now with the war-torn country that's I visited a few years ago. Sad to hear that, but I guess that's not for me really to decide or anything like that. I'm sure we've got great people in power to figure that out now. But anyway, Porto, they found a way in. They had been conceding a ton of goals. Francisco Conceição I believe that's his first name. He had left for I think before the season started, and eventually wound up at AC Milan this year after replacing Paulo Fonseca. But New Porto, they conceded a ton of goals, and that's why they're struggling on the outside looking in, considering a team that knocked out Juventus in the knockout rounds of Champions League years ago. Struggling in Europa League was a big surprise, especially with so many teams advancing. But Roma, I mean, they were in a dire strait as well. Had to play their best for their uh, to really fight for their lives. They were in the next round, but had to get a result to guarantee it. They got a big win at home to Eintracht Frankfurt, and things have improved a little bit. Claudio Ranieri, of Leicester City fame for winning the Premier League as the biggest underdog and ever. Um, he came back out of retirement for Roma because that was like the only clubs he would do that for. Things have not been great for them. I think at a pick 'em right now, there's nothing for me to do this one. I lean to over if anything, but I still think Roma are an under team. So right now, I guess I'll put under 2.25 as my biggest interest in this matchup, but I'll be really waiting for the side to climb to a quarter goal underdog. In terms of two advanced numbers, maybe that's somewhere where I can get down. Porto plus 130 to get through Roma minus 160. I think that reflects the clubs being in Portugal and in Italy, respectively. Um, but I don't really play favorites, and I don't really want much to do with Porto, especially with the second leg away from home. Move next to FC Twente Andrade. They are hosting Bodo Glimt in the first leg. We'll eventually go to, I believe, Norway is where Bodo Glimt is. Anyway, Twente, a half a goal favorite at home. Almost all the juice on Bodo Glimt. Total is 2.75. Juice more to the over. Twente, to me, I mean, their Dutch side from the Eredivisie have not been that impressive, but have played pretty good defense when I've backed their unders so far this season. That's tailed off a little bit when they weren't playing the big clubs like Manchester United. Maybe that was a Manchester United thing. Maybe it was the Twente thing. Um, at this point, Bodo Glimt, they have been good in these competitions for a while, but they try to outscore you. So that is a little bit of a concern for me. I do like the under 2.75, though, is my biggest interest, just because it feels like a stage of this competition where first legs are going to be pretty conservative. And I think if Bodo Glimt will ever be conservative, it's here, knowing the second leg is at home. In terms of two advanced numbers, we have Twente minus 125, Bodo Glimt even money. I'm interested there because Bodo Glimt have a plus sign next to their name. At least you get the same money you lay back with you if you win. And they have a second leg at home. So if they can take their business, get a win away, it's not really expected. But if they got one, that'd be huge. Draw puts them in a really good position and would certainly make that a worthwhile bet that you could potentially sell off, take Twente in the second leg, and get some profit either way. Last but not least, we'll go AZ Alkmaar, also of the Dutch Eredivisie, hosting Galatasaray of the Turkish Super League. Currently, AZ a pick'em right now with all the juice. Total is 3, and the juice is split both ways. Now, Galatasaray, also a team of big names. Feels like all the Turkish clubs are, at least the big ones in Istanbul that play in these competitions. They're going to visit and will have to deal with a really tough crowd. AZ have not been very impressive, but I do think that they have a lot of talent, as most of the Eredivisie big teams have. And I do like that big crowd that always supports them and really drives their Eredivisie success, I think. So I'm interested in AZ Alkmaar at Pick'em, and I think I'm more interested in under 3. I like the push there, though. To me, Galatasaray are an over clubs. That's hard for me to want to mess with. But like I said, with Bodo Glimt, they also are one of those clubs that are probably going to do their best to get a result away and then win it at home in front of their raucous crowd. AZ Alkmaar currently plus 160 to move on. 100 will win you 160. Galatasaray 1 to 2. So every dollar you bet, you get 50 cents for. Every $2 you bet, you get 1. Um, Azad Alkmaar, if you want to take a position that they win this first leg and want to get one plus 160 on it, that probably will change. It's hard to say exactly what it'll get to, because a lot of this is based on the handle that these sports books will receive. Um, but any sort of good AZ Alkmaar result in the first leg, that I guess you need to win. But if you believe they'll win, plus 160 might be worth it, because then you could certainly sell it off at a cheaper price on the road at Galatasaray, or potentially win there on the road in Istanbul and potentially win that way. I think my biggest interest in this one, I'll go AZ Alkmaar a pick'em. And I think that'll do it for a very brief Europa League episode. But before you go, we will go through, and I got to put my ultimate best bet together, but want to also plug the NFL podcast is over, but we will be doing a Major League Baseball podcast again on the Betting Pitch Podcast Network with A. Brooks Bets. Stay tuned for that. We're trying to get some details figured out on an off-season episode. And the Need for Seeds College Basketball Podcast with Big East Ben. That's still rolling on pregame.com this season as they picked up our podcast. Thank you for them for the support. And of course, go check us out. We've had a really good start to the season. I think we had 0-2 last week, unfortunately, but that's will be forgotten, and we'll move onward and upward like we were loyal to Chicago. And if you're a European person, or if you're from Europe and trying to figure out what Loyola Chicago is, not worth it. But they do like scarves, so maybe there's some unity there. Okay, for the ultimate best bet on the late window, I'm gonna go with AZ Alkmaar, a pick'em as my selection there. But it's time to get through and give you an ultimate best bet. And we've had an awesome start to the season. It's honestly been rolling. I don't know how it's been going that well, but that's going to try to keep it going as long as possible. And I haven't really been quiet about it, so I'm not really that afraid of jinxing it. But let's see where I can get this so I can see yeah, there we go. Okay, I think it's time to do it. So let's start. Hey, this is real_G Warner on Instagram, Patreon, Twitter, and on YouTube. This is the ultimate best bet for the Europa League soccer podcast. We are 30-10, 75% so far this season on the Europa League episodes, or really all episodes, all soccer episodes. Some of them have been Europa League. From the early window, I like Michelin under 2.25 goals against Real Sociedad, and I like AZ Alkmaar, a pick'em in the late window. But for the ultimate best bet, 30-10, 75% year to date. If you want to hear more of this, make sure you hit the follow button at the real_G Warner on YouTube and on Instagram. Go leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and the Spotify too. That'd be nice. We're gonna go with Michelin, a under 2.25 goals, hosting Real Sociedad as I wear a shirt with the Real Sociedad logo. They're gonna dominate this shirt, the game like this shirt. They're gonna not score a lot. That's kind of how the Real Sociedad matches go. And I think away from home in a very cold environment, we see the same result. So go under 2.25, Real Sociedad, Michelin. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for tuning in. I will see you on the Friday episode covering the entire top 5 European Soccer League weekend, going through English Premier League, La Liga in Spain, Serie A in Italy, Bundesliga in Germany, and Ligue 1 in France. I don't see any comments, so I will sign off here in just a second, but also want to make sure anyone that's around, if you want more content, check out my Patreon, patreon.com/real_G Warner. College basketball is starting to heat up, and we're about to get to tournament time, so that's the best time to follow. Highly recommend, and I'll see you all very, very soon.